All right, today, big day, you are watching this video on your own and then completing the assignment and submitting it. So you need to listen to what I say, write down what I do, rewatch if there are any questions, and come into class with questions if you have them after you do the assignment and submit it. All right, here we go. So today you are going to be learning or remembering what to do when you use 0 as an exponent and what to do when there are negative exponents and how to simplify them. So the basics, the 3 basic rules are the biggest rules. These are kind of like sub rules. It's good to look at them separately, but they're not part of the 3 major rules. All right. 0 as an exponent. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Why? So anything to the 0 power is 1. Okay, why is that the case? Well, that is the case because when we divide here, so this is just an example of how this works, to hopefully show you why. If you divide here, 5 minus 5 is 0. But you also know that x to the 5th over x to the 5th, anything divided by itself is 1. So x to the 0 is just another way of saying 1. It's just another saying the answer to that division problem is 1 because when we divided, we got 0. It's just a constant loop, but that's the basic idea. Okay, so the big deal is, because that's a pretty simple concept, anything to the 0 power is 1, what is being raised to the 0 power? So that's what you really need to look at. So here's the 0 exponent. What is being raised to the 0 power? Well, that's a 7. That whole thing is being raised, so that's 1. Now with this one, anything to the 0 power is 1. You're like, oh, easy, 1. No. Okay, whenever you have a negative here, and if you want to take a second and type it into your calculator or your phone or whatever, you'll see that this is actually negative 1. And the reason that it's negative 1 is because this negative on the outside here is actually just a shortcut way of us saying negative 1 times 7 to the 0 power. So only the 7 is being raised to the 0 power, not the negative outside of it. So this winds up being negative 1 times 1, which is negative 1. So unless there's parentheses, it's only what's directly being touched by the exponent. Okay, so here we have parentheses. So what's being raised to the 0 power? The entire 2x. So that's 1. This one does not have exponents, so what's being raised to the 0 power here? Just the x. So this becomes 2 times 1, which is 2. All right, what's being raised to the 0 power here? This whole thing. So this is 1, so it's 5 times 1, which is 5. Exciting, right? And what's being raised to the 0 power here? It's the entire thing. So this whole thing to the 0 power, answer is 1. So hopefully you understand the idea behind 0 as an exponent, more importantly, what is being raised to the 0 power, or any exponent for that matter. All right, then we have our negative exponents. So negative exponents is another way to write the base as a fraction, as I so poignantly write here. Okay, so if I were to simplify this one, if we did this one, we could do this in 2 ways. This question here, if I do 3 minus 5, I get x to the negative 2 power. So remember, that is really x to the negative 2 over 1, because whenever you divide, you subtract and put the answer in the top. But these 2 things, they are the same thing. If I were to simplify this using Algebra 1 methods, you can see that the x is canceled out here, here, and here, and we're left with 2 in the denominator. Okay, so what this means is if you have x to the negative 2 power, that is the same as 1 over x squared. Okay, so what that means is negative exponents, so that's the y. Some of you like the y and it helps you to see the next step. Some of you don't. So try to take what you need from each of these problems and use them when you're solving them, okay? Try to focus on what helps you and then apply it. So negative exponents simply mean that the base is in the wrong place. So there's two places. There's a top and there's a bottom. Okay? If you have a negative exponent in the top, that means it should be in the bottom to be positive, and vice versa. Okay? Vice versa? Whatever. So there are two parts. Oh, I just look at that. I said, look at me, past self. Okay, so top and bottom. So this one looks like it only has a top here, this x to the negative fifth. So if it looks like it only has a top, we have to give it a bottom, and that bottom is always 1. So x to the negative fifth, the base is in the wrong place. What's the base? The base is the x. We know this. Okay, so the x is in the wrong place. Well, that negative 5 is part of, it's connected to it, so it's got to go too. So that negative 5, that moves down to the bottom, and now it's just positive 5. So when it's negative, it's in the wrong place. When it's positive, it's in the right place. And we need a placeholder there, so we put a 1 up on top. Okay? Maybe it seems a little confusing. Let's do a couple examples without the y and see if you can understand it from there. Okay? All right. What is the base of the exponent? So there's something you definitely do have to recognize. What is the base? What is the base that's in the wrong place? We're not going to, we'll move it around in just a second. We'll do some examples. But you see that the exponent here is negative 3. What's the base to that negative 3? It's just the x. Okay, because there's no parentheses, and it's important that you see that because that's what you're going to be moving. So this negative 3 here is also the exponent, but the parentheses are around the 2x, so that means the entire 2x is the base. So hopefully you can follow that and understand the basis behind it. So most of the time we do want our exponents to be positive. So when we do this, switching them around is going to be important. So if you have a negative exponent, move only the base and the exponent. Okay? Move it, if it's in the bottom, move it to the top, top move to the bottom. Okay? Exponents then change to a positive number. So once you move them, they become positive. It's just basically like if you hit the elevator button, I like to say like it's an elevator button. If you click the elevator button, if it's on if you're on the wrong floor, and it turns off when you get to the right floor. Just like the negative. And if you have a positive exponent, just leave it, don't move it, stop. Okay, so here we go. Let's do just a couple examples. So here we have a to the negative 6. Well, negative 6 is the exponent. There's no bottom, so let's give it a bottom. Negative 6 means this base a is in the wrong place, so we're going to move the a to the bottom. And when I move that, the 6 goes with it, and it becomes positive. So it's like I push the elevator button here, and when it comes down to the bottom, I'm on the right floor, so I don't no longer need that negative. Okay, so here we go again. Make this a fraction. The negative 8 is the negative exponent. What is being raised to the negative 8 power? Well, it's just the y here. All right. So what that means is that means the negative 5 stays where it is. The y moves down, and the 8 becomes positive with it. All right. And that's it. That's the movement. So you just have to practice moving it a few times. And that's it. So we have x to the negative 7th power. It's on the bottom. So that means that the x is in the wrong place. So x needs to move up here with the 7. Now it's positive. And we can put a 1 on the bottom as a placeholder. But really, this is just x to the 7th. Okay? So just realize if it's just a whole number or just one term, you can make it a fraction or take away the fraction if there's a 1 on the bottom. Alrighty, so we want to simplify these, so this gets a little bit more complicated. So we have 4 over 2 and y to the negative 3 and y to the negative 1. I teach this almost different every year. It's whatever's easier for you. I'm going to teach it this way, and then in class maybe we'll go over another way to maybe it'll be easier, whatever. So y to the negative 3, the negative 3 is the exponent, the y is the base. So we're going to switch the negative exponents first in this case because it might make it easier, positive exponents. So y to the negative 3 should be on the bottom and be positive. And then y to the negative 1 should be positive up here. We make it y to the first. So the 4 and the 2 stay because there's no parentheses, so it doesn't move. Now we divide. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So the base is in the wrong place again. Okay, so sometimes the way that this works, you have to kind of do this a few times. So 2 over y squared. Okay, because this y to the negative 2 is in the wrong place, so it moves to the bottom. So, okay. So there's a number of ways to do this. As long as you follow the math, it doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you mathematically follow it. So the way I like to do this one is I'm going to distribute that negative through first. And when this is parentheses here, so I know I'm going to distribute that negative 1 to each of these. But you have to recognize that that's x to the first power when you're doing this. So this is x to the negative 1, y to the negative 5, z squared. And now that I've done that, I move anything with a negative base to the bottom, or a negative exponent to the bottom. So this one and this one are negative, so they're going to move down and become positive, and that z squared stays on top because the 2 is positive. So that's x, y to the 5th. You can put the 1 there, you can leave it off, it's up to you. So this is kind of how it goes. So you just have to practice and see how it goes. So these parentheses are just on the top, so we should do those first, right? Parentheses is generally what we do first. So I'm going to multiply it through, so it's x to the negative 10, y to the 8th. On the bottom, I'm not changing anything because there's nothing to change yet. Now that I've done this, I have all these negative exponents. Let's switch them up. Let's make them positive. So the only thing that's not moving is that y to the 8th. Everything else is going to switch its spot. So I'm going to take this x to the 10th, move it down here. I'm going to take that x to the 4th and move it up here, and that y squared and move it up here. Okay, and now, again, we got to keep simplifying until there's only one x and one y with one exponent. So we have up here, y squared and y to the 8th, we're multiplying. They're on the same level, so we're multiplying these guys. Bases, so we add the exponent, so it's y to the 10th here. For this one, let's change colors so you can kind of see. So this one and this one are dividing. They're on a different level, so we subtract. Remember, it's always the top minus the bottom, and the answer always goes on the top. So this y is on the top, so it's y, nice one, Varys. It's x, 4 minus 10 is negative 6. And then we have to move this to the bottom. So it's y to the 10th over x to the 6th. This takes a little practice, but it's a lot of moving, and sometimes you can get to the point where you do it in your head and you can see the movement in your head and you won't have to show this step so much anymore. All right, you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow.